Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Devin McClellan, and I am a member of Registrar Corp's marketing team, and I'm pleased to chair today's webinar. We're excited to have you join the U.S. Foreign Commercial Service teams across Southeast Asia and Registrar Corp for this webinar, which is focused on unlocking the cosmetics market for Southeast Asian exporters. There will be 3 parts to this webinar. First, Registrar Corp will discuss the key U.S. FDA regulations that apply to exporters, including additions under the Modernization of Cosmetics Regulation Act of 2022, otherwise known as MoCRA. For the second part of the webinar, the U.S. Department of Commerce will discuss the SelectUSA program, the annual SelectUSA Investment Summit, which takes place every year in May in the USA, and some tools for companies looking to set up or expand their U.S. operations. And finally, we will round off the webinar with a Q&A session. So please feel free to send through your questions as you think of them during today's webinar using the Q&A function in the webinar platform. And as a heads up, we would really appreciate your help with providing your feedback through a survey link that we'll drop in the chat at the end of the webinar. So to get us started, let me introduce you to our first speaker, Aisha Guzman, Manager of Cosmetic Services at Registrar Corp. Aisha brings nearly a decade of experience to her role where she oversees to deliver exceptional client experiences and maintain the highest standards of service quality. She holds a bachelor's in biochemistry from Arizona State University and is currently pursuing a master's in chemistry with a concentration in research and development. Aisha has successfully completed listings and registrations for more than 1,000 clients, and her expertise spans cosmetic regulations, service management, client care, and team leadership. Take it away, Aisha.
Thank you, Devin. Thank you so much. So getting started on MoCRA, right? So let's talk MoCRA. What is MoCRA? So today's discussion is going to be exactly that. What is MoCRA? MoCRA's product registrations, product listings, adverse event, cosmetic label requirements, and of course, we have our questions and answers at the end. Okay, so let's start with, as all you don't know, for those that are not familiar with Registrar Corp, we're one of the largest companies with FDA compliance, as well as we have global expertise within MoCRA. We have done more than 1,000 cosmetic companies. We have more than 1,000 cosmetic companies, and we do have 5 of the top 7 biggest cosmetic companies in the world. Okay, we have managed more than 50,000 listings, as well as we are the only company that meets the ISO standards for safety, which is the 27001. Okay, so let's kick it. So let's see, what is MoCRA? So the modernization of MoCRA was actually implemented for the safety of cosmetics, not only for its consumers, but as well as for companies who actually manufacture or build or are the responsible persons in this case. And in the US, back there was no, let's say, implementation. The FDA didn't have that legal enforcement to produce anything that comes in to the United States in regards to your cosmetics. So this is not only based on science, they also based it on the regulation to make it safety for the cosmetics to come into the US and for your consumers. And with this new MoCRA regulation, the FDA does have authority over everything that is cosmetics. So what could happen? Not only you would have a detention at the border, you could have a mandatory recall. Mandatory recalls are very hard to come out. It takes time and a lot of knowledge to be able to come out of that mandatory recall or the warning letters, as well as once you register a company, that FDA has the authority to inspect your company's facilities for it to meet the standards of the good manufacturing practices. And it also, as I said, it could detain your product in the border. One of the main practices that there's 5 regulations that the FDA does issue. One of those is registration and product listing. Registration and product listing do go one by one, with one another. So let's talk about registration. So under MoCRA, the regulation says that every person that owns, operates a facility that manufactures or processes a cosmetic product for distribution in the United States is required to register. For non-US companies, the FDA requires you to have what is called a US agent destination. Okay, it's somebody based in the United States that is able to assist you and has the knowledge that consumes with the FDA. And when was this deadline? The deadline to be able to register your facility, it was December 29, 2023. Okay. So there's exceptions when it comes to the registration. So the FDA does put in the MoCRA that if your company is exempt if they make less than $1 million within those 3 years of average annually. It does count for inflation each year. And it does apply to not only the responsible persons as well as that facility if it meets that revenue. What is the MoCRA exceptions? It could exempt you from product registration, product listing, as well as some GMP subtitles. And when it comes to the guidance, so the FDA doesn't tell you there is a documentation that needs to be provided if your company is a small business. They don't require anything when it comes to it, and there's no restrictions. But they do implement it when there's some regulations and some products that do not fall under this exemption. Anything that has to do with eye products, anything that lasts more than 24 hours, any injectables, those things like those products that are cosmetics, that are considered cosmetics, are not exempt from registration or not exempt from listing because they don't fall under this exception. So product listing. Product listing is requirements into the establishment of greater accountability. So every product that you bring into the United States or every cosmetic has to have a product listing assigned. And what this does is it provides your manufacturers with what requires you to have that distribution in the US, as well as by requiring detailed submission. It does require you to have ingredients information. It does provide you with who is listed on the label as your responsible person. As well, it gives you 120 days once your product is already in the market to be able to list it with the FDA. Okay. So the responsible person must obtain an FEI from the manufacturing facility or the filler. If you have a manufacturing company as well as a filler, you would need to get both FEIs from that facility, and that FEI has to be registered with the facility. This includes ingredients. So the ingredients is as listed on the label. There's no quantities that you're putting. It's just you're including your ingredients as listed on the label when it comes to the FDA. This is something that is renewed every single year. In or about the time that you, on that yearly anniversary of that submission of your listing is when it has to be renewed. And the FDA did provide some categories when it comes to it. They have about 17 categories that you would have to base those products under that specific category. Some examples. So as I said, you would include the product information. This includes product name, your brand. Let's, for example, skincare, it would be makeup. And this, within that product name, you have to include your brand as well as those ingredients as listed on the label. Sometimes it's considered an inky name as well. In some countries, it's considered an inky name. Some are ingredients that just as listed on the label. The same order that are in the labels, the same order that will be in your submissions. They will require manufacturing details. If your company is exempt, they do require you to have the manufacturer's name. If your company is not exempt, you're required to have an FEI number, which that FEI is used once you do your registration. It is used exactly for that. You could have an FEI, but the FEI has to be registered to that facility. You could submit labels, front and back, as well as your responsible persons. So the FDA defines the responsible person as listed on the label. So whatever company is listed on the label, it could be your manufacturer, it could be the importer, it could be as well as the brand owner. But for the FDA, it is considered the company that is listed on the label. Those are the requirements that you have to be able to submit a product listing with the FDA. Another component of MoCRA is adverse event reporting. So with adverse event reporting, under MoCRA, the responsible person must maintain and records up to 6 years of every claim of adverse event. You could have two options. You could have the client that has the serious adverse event, which has to be notified to the FDA within 15 days, and you could have your adverse event, meaning it could be a simple rash, and that determines if it could be something threatening as a serious adverse event, or it could be just an adverse event. Both have to be, but both of it has to, your bookkeeping has to be up to 6 years for both cases. In the case that you have to inform to the FDA, as I said, you have 15 days to submit to the FDA if you're considering it as a serious adverse event. If not, you're able to just bookkeep it or archive it in your records for up to 6 years. As well as what is defined as an adverse event. Any health-related associated with a cosmetic is an adverse event. You could have simple as a rash, burn, allergic reaction, hair loss. All of those are considered adverse events. What is a serious adverse event? A serious adverse event is anything that has to do with death, life-threatening experience, or inpatient hospitalization, a persistent or consistent disability or incapacity, or anything that is abnormal, birth defect, anything that has to have more than just an hospitalization. It has to have more than care. The care has to go on. That is considered a serious adverse event, and that has to be reported with the FDA. And as well as that serious adverse event, it has to be documented by a medical professional. So when it comes to what is new for MoCRA when it comes to adverse event. So MoCRA adds an additional labeling requirement in the form of a contact to which a consumer can submit an adverse event report. While this has been fairly common in the industry up to this point, however, it has been changed from, it has to be now is a US domestic address, phone number, or any electronic contact, including a website. Any electronic version, it could be a URL, a QR code, or an email, or maybe a website. This provides the FDA with that electronic version that they're requiring you to have for those foreign companies. And the FDA also establishes that a list of fragrant allergens in the next few years for which labeling requirement is being imposed, companies will have to disclose certain fragrance allergens on their cosmetic label. FDA does not give any guidance yet on those specific regulations. It hasn't been met yet. So with what it has to do with fragrant allergens, once the FDA does bring up that specific list, then they will be able to give you more guidance on how is it supposed to be met within your labels. the impact. So we're looking at the impact that comes to not only our brands as well as your manufacturers. Adverse event involves 4 components. So you receive this information, your company reviews it, record keeping, and you have to confirm if it's something that needs to be reported to the FDA or is something that we could just archive it or contact your consumer and see what within the company is best to follow through. But those that have to be reported, you have to follow the steps and submit it at a time within those 15 days. Challenge. Changing a product label is a major project for a US company. For a cosmetic company, it can take up to months due to department involvement, marketing, packaging, manufacturing, legals, etc. Physical address on the label can be a problem. Adjusting street addresses can take extra space on very limited packages. Let's say we have an eyeliner. Try to adding an entire address into those tiny eyeliners on that label. It's very, very hard to do. It's very challenging. However, companies may not have a physical US address or anything that would have within those regulations of the FDA, or let's say a phone number. So you would have to require somebody or a person to be able to answer those phones at all times, able to gather all the data that they require. So means the best collection of data is electronic. You're able to have a URL, a QR code that as we go based on years and years, it is easier for us to go into our mobile, put in that URL or that QR or scan that QR code, and we're able to determine all the steps that we need within that. It is easier, it comes to you faster, and less error when it comes as an electronic version. So adverse event requires up to 30 plus fields to be filled in by the consumer. Submission of adverse event information has been easy, preferable via, as I said, a form or a mobile app. It's easier when you're trying to submit a claim via app. You have all the information there. The FDA, all the information that is required by the FDA, the consumer has to put it in there. So you're not missing information. You don't have to go back and forth with your consumer for missing information. You have it all at one place, easier for your consumers as well as for yourself. When we review and investigate, so not every company is medically equipped to see which products are or which claim is considered an adverse event or is considered a serious adverse event. So when you are investigating the event, you're able to determine which is which. Do companies have in-house? Most likely not. So for us to provide the FDA with what is needed when it comes to regulation, you have to have constant monitoring, and you do have to have that time consuming when it comes to those 15 days, 15 consecutive days, not only retrieving data, researching this data, investigating this data, confirming with a in-house counsel to see if we have the capacity to confirm if it's a non-US, if it's a serious adverse event or it's not a serious adverse event. There's a lot that comes in when you're doing that review and investigation. If you're trying to do it by a call or by an email that was sent, there's still going to be missing data instead of just having that document that tells you what to put in by your consumer. One of the other requirements that went into effect the 29th of 2023, it's called the Adverse Event Reporting and Bookkeeping. as explained, you have to keep it for 6 years. No matter if it's a serious adverse event or non-serious adverse event, the FDA requires you to have it for 6 years. Well, it is a mandatory regulation by the FDA. So now MoCRA mandates that the responsible person's name on that label must submit a report of any serious adverse events that receives from a consumer along with a copy of the label. So when you're doing your submission with the FDA for your serious adverse event, there's about 30 or more questions, as well as require you to add that label among your copy for the FDA for that adverse event. The term adverse event means any health-related event associated with the use of that cosmetic product, meaning that anything that happened to your consumer within that usage, it is considered an adverse event. Determining if it's a serious adverse event or not, that is where the medical expertise comes in. So the FDA, one of the requirements that went into place, as I said, is the bookkeeping. And the FDA has put into place what is called the MedWatch. It is based somewhat in how MedWatch is for drugs. It's exactly the same document that needs to be submitted. And all the information that is required, it would be on this document, as well as it said, you have to add that label. And you have for a serious adverse event, you have to have those 15 days to submit it. You would have to require information from that consumer for any medical information that is required within that specific adverse event. Yes, the MedWatch, it is used right now for drugs as well as for cosmetics. We use the same system to submit with the FDA. The importance of adverse event and bookkeeping. So the FDA can request access to all events, so records need to be organized and maintain all the necessary information up to 6 years. Companies can detect issues, patterns with products, or any health concerns that you may have with that recall of that product. They're able to expedite serious adverse event with proper intake and report keeping, normalize incident rates, and predict event with the use of specific products. You as well are able to determine acceptable ranges. Book record, it's great post-market surveillance tool to enhance consumer safety. So if you're giving the consumers know that you have this enhanced tool that is helping you not only receive it at a time fashion, informing you if it's a serious adverse event or not, record keeping, uploading all the information for the MedWatch, it provides that cushion of safety towards your consumer because it's all under one. What's the impact on your retailers and customer experience? Contact information. Retailers have reached out to brands to improve the contact information in case of an adverse event. Some retailers have already requested labels to review that contact adverse event process. Retailers have requested point of contact with adverse events received from their customers. Some retailers have established their own in-house process to ensure that brands are properly addressing adverse events. Recall. Retailers have requested a recall process from brands, have had brands with signed affidavits that they are able to properly recall a product. The customer experience. Customer contact. Customers can now contact brands directly with the use of the electronic version. as listed on the label. Customers have also provide more information within their complaint. Customers now understand that brands are responsible with adverse events. Customer service versus safety and quality. Customer service is not the same as safety or the quality team. Safety and quality team needs to be equipped to recognize an adverse event versus a complaint. Action needs to be taken to accommodate that consumer. What's the action? Safety and quality teams must quickly understand and extend the adverse event and what steps must be taken. Customers not receiving proper action could be a potential direct issue with the FDA. They could go directly to the FDA and complain of that specific product if no action is taken from the actual company of that specific brand. Another method of, we have already registration, product listing, adverse event, and comes label, cosmetic label. There are certain statements that most always must appear in a cosmetic label as shown here. You have to have the statement of identity, the net quantities, that list of ingredients, your warning, your safe use, as well as your manufacturer or packer or distributor. That comes into place with your responsible person, okay? Or country of origin, placement, appropriate claims. All of those are requirements that has to be met for your labels. First and foremost is the statement of identity, what the product actually is. FDA requires that it could be a common or usual name used in a marketplace and approximately describe the name or a fanciful name understood by the general public. The FDA seems to allow quite a bit of leeway when it comes to those specifics, but the agency even allows for an illustration or vintage of intended use. Although it seems few companies will surely only rely on this, but the FDA does have conditions on this statement though. It should not reference a single ingredient and a name or an ingredients are present. For example, a mixture of oils could not be called argan oil, even if argan is the most prevented oil. The statement also needs to be clear to the consumer. So the FDA requires it to be in bold type, reasonably related to the large printed matters on the labels, although they do not define what it means on the principal display panel or the parallel to this base of a package. The principal display panel is part of the label. So for the label, what meets the label, your statement of identity, as well as your quantity of contents and that ingredient list. These are all mandatory requirements that the FDA does have. There are some exceptions to the rules for certain ingredients, such as flavors, fragrances, or shaded products. However, it all depends on that, how it is stated on the label. Directions and warnings, as well as your manufacturer, your packer, your distributor, or statement, country of origin, because they can vary so much from product to product. The FDA does not have any specification on the regulations related to the directions on the warnings, but companies must be ensured that is included in the label for the safety of your consumers. FDA has published some regulation that mandates specific warnings for certain products, such as those self-pressured containers, skin patch tests for coal tar hair dyes, others that are required for feminine deodorant sprays and tanning products. The FDA requires a tamper evidence statement and a tamper-resistant package on certain types of product as well, such as a liquid or hygiene and vaginal products. Also, the companies must note that there is a specific warning in regulation that must appear on this display of the panel. Every cosmetic product label needs to be declared either by the manufacturer, your packer, or distributor. You may choose any of these three options to meet the requirement. Note that it must include the actual corporation name and address. Although you may omit the street address, it is found in the FDA local directory. The FDA must have a way to connect the responsible party if they discover any problems with the specific product. It could be a US or non-US entity. This entity, the FDA defines this as the responsible person. So it is different than what is solely responsible person for the EU. Okay, the EU has a different definition. The FDA defines that responsible person as listed on the label. While the FDA doesn't have a requirement, it is important to know that the US and Customs and Border Protections has a label requirement for the country of origin on foreign articles. This includes FDA regulated cosmetic products. This is a country where the last substantial transformation took place, and it must appear on the retail of cosmetic products. For example, our PRC is not accepted as an abbreviation for China, as a part of the US consumer may not be familiar with it. Also, Customs has regulated as a rule that Korea may be used instead of South Korea, although it may be prudent to keep South for clarity. US Customs to accept it to the US Customs to prevent any barriers of entry. If your product is manufactured in the US, this requirement does not apply. Okay. FDA requirements, specifications, placements, outer container. Your principal package panel should have the name of the product, statement of identity, warnings, as well as your net quantities of context. The information panel, those usually are in the inside, is direction of use, warnings, the ingredient list, as well as that declaration of the manufacturer, packer, or distributor, and any other required information. The FDA requires specific placement inner container. So the front of your label, front panel of the label should have the name of the product and statement of identity, which is an optional field. What's the information panel? It's the directions of use, your warnings, your net quantities, the declaration of your manufacturer, packer, or any other information. The FDA has fewer requirements for the inner or primary container. The front panel will need to have the name of the product. The statement of the identity is optional, but usually included for consumer clarity. These information panels will have the same information as the outer container, with the important exception of the ingredient list. Ingredient declaration would also be required on the inner and outer layers of your labels. Claims are a very important part of the intended use of the market of the cosmetic products. Of course, companies have the highlight all the benefits that will come from the consumer using their products, especially in the extremely competitive personal care products industry. Companies need to be aware of the FDA enforcement on claims, particularly on imported products that can be inspected in the port. FDA's enforcement is rooted in the regulation and legal definition of the cosmetic and drug. By definition, cosmetics may only be intended to cleanliness, beautifying, promoting attractiveness, or altering your appearance, while drugs is defined as the intended to affect the structure of any function of your body, as well as those intended to diagnose, treat, or prevent a disease. There's your difference between a cosmetic and a drug. The part of the drug definition means that claims that the product has an effect of the structure or definition of your body can cause the product to be deemed a drug. So that it comes when you're looking at your products and determining if it's a cosmetic or is a drug. You have to look at what is intended for that product to be used for. If it's used for promoting attractiveness, or is it is defined or claimed to treat or diagnose. There's when you determine which of those two fields your products will go into. The benefits that are described should be linked to the cosmetic functions such as moisturizer, exfoliation. For example, a claim that a wrinkle is erased due to collagen production in the skin may be inappropriate, but a claim that wrinkles are less noticeable because of the moisturizer and the exfoliants may be considered acceptable by the FDA. Claims that exceed the FDA's considers to be appropriate can result in a product detention or refusal, meaning that whatever's listed on that label, that whatever claim you have on your label, the FDA could detain your product because of that claim. Because it's not considered a drug, it could be considered a cosmetic and vice versa. In addition to the regulations regarding the mandatory statements, the FDA has made the regulations related to other labeling and formatting issues. Color additives are one of the biggest enforcement issues for the FDA. Regulated products in general, not just for cosmetics. The FDA requires that all color additives be approved by the FDA for the intended use. Also, some colors, such as sunset yellow or allura red, require what is called a batch certification. This is a process by which the manufacturer of that color additive submits a sample from each manufacturer batch to the FDA for testing. Another common practice is to include languages other than English on the product label. The FDA requires English and states that it is a mandatory information is presented in any other languages. Brand names and mottos appear to be exempt from this requirement if they do not convey material information about the product. Organic cosmetics are gaining a foothold in the market due to the consumer's desire to clean beauty products. If you choose to include the USDA's organic symbol, then you will have to follow USDA rules, which may be based on that percentage of the organic ingredient in that product may require a certification from the USDA accredited agent. And it may be disclosed of that agent's information on your label. MoCRA imposes new regulation requirements. There are three main areas that MoCRA will impact a cosmetic label. Products intended for use by licensed professionals must always have that statement for professional use only. MoCRA also mandates a new adverse event contact declaration. The label must bear a U.S. phone number, U.S. address, electronic contact, such as website, where the consumer can actually report those adverse events to the responsible person. MoCRA also regulates that certain fragrance allergens must be declared on the label, but at this point, the FDA has not issued any allergen disclosures yet. Is your cosmetic actually a drug? Many companies market products that are regulated in their home countries as cosmetics without realizing as they enter the US market that the FDA may consider them a drug and subject to a different set of regulations. So we already based on what cosmetic is. So if you have a product that is used for cleansing, beautifying, promoting attractiveness, or altering your appearance, it's considered a cosmetic Claims should only reference superficial change. Can be regulated as a drug if claims exceed is appropriate. So what's a drug? A drug is used or is defined as anything that is diagnosis, cure, treat, cure it. Let's say we have a dandruff shampoo and you put in your labels, it prevents dandruff or it cures your dandruff. That is considered a claim as a diagnosis. It is intended to affect the structure of that function of your body. It is considered a drug if it's used to cure or mitigate treatment. The second part of this drug definition is what allows the FDA to regulate certain personal care products as drugs. Even though those that may have an active pharmaceutical ingredient, it can be considered a cosmetic. It just depends on those claims. Many products that we tend to think of having a cosmetic effect to our appearance are in fact drugs under the FDA regulatory system. Some of most common products like acne cleansers, antibacterial soap, fluorine toothpaste, sunscreen, skin protectors, all of those are considered drugs, not a cosmetic. So this product will be subject to more rigorous set of requirements than cosmetic. If you market any of those products, reach out to for more information on what is required for those specific products. So with the MoCRA, what MoCRA has and what Registrar serves all of your FDA compliance. We have your product listing as well as your adverse event management. It's a software where you're able to keep all of those tasks. You're able to receive, book, investigate, as well as submit the documentation that is needed for that adverse event. We're able to do your facility registration, your label review. We're able to act as the US agent, as well as your compliance online training. Cosmetry is just the product formulation software that we as well have. Plus, we have consulting hours and services as well. Not sure which MoCRA regulation applies to you. Many companies market product that are regulated in their home. However, we're able to utilize our tool to determine what your product is and where to move forward, if it's a drug or a cosmetic, or you're exempt or not. And that is done for me. It goes back to you, Devin.
Thank you, Aisha. It was a very informative presentation. And if anyone on this call has questions about Aisha's presentation, please feel free to go ahead and put them into the Q&A feature of this webinar platform. And while we know FDA regulations can be daunting, please take comfort from the fact that Registrar Corp has helped more than 30,000 exporters around the world become FDA compliant before they started their export activity to the US. So again, please do not hesitate to reach out with any questions about how we can support you. It now gives me great pleasure to introduce our next speaker, Muhammad Mastan, Investment Specialist for ASEAN from the US Embassy in Singapore. Mas joined the US Department of Commerce at the US Embassy in Singapore as an investment specialist in August 2020. Prior to this, he spent 8 years in the financial sector, holding positions at leading institutions, including Goldman Sachs, State Street, and Standard Chartered Bank. In his current role, he supports companies across Southeast Asia in expanding their presence in the United States. He's played a key role in strengthening US-ASEAN trade and investment relations through close collaboration with government agencies and business associations in the region. Mas holds a Master of Science in International Relationships from the Nanyang Technological University and a Master of Laws from Singapore Management University. Over to you, Mastan.
All right, thank you so much. Let me just share my screen right away. All right, thank you so much, Devon, and also Aisha for your, great support and also, for joining us today. So my name is Mas. So I'm actually part of the U.S. Department of Commerce, U.S. Embassy Singapore, like Devon mentioned earlier. I'm actually covering the SelectUSA program in Singapore. So I work closely together with my colleagues across ASEAN region as well. So some of them are also tuning in online today. I'd like to also thank the companies in the cosmetic sectors across the region who have joined us today to learn more about how to expand your cosmetics businesses into the US markets. Hopefully, after this webinar, you'll have more information in order to do so and reach out to us, once, you are ready to go to the US. Firstly, I'd like to actually talk about the SelectUSA program, followed by the SelectUSA Investor Summit, which is coming up very soon in May this year. Firstly, an introduction about the SelectUSA program. So, SelectUSA is a federal government initiative which was started by President Obama back in 2011 in order to help international companies to expand into the US markets. Um, so, we actually help companies across all sectors, including cosmetics as well. And we also help companies across all sizes as well, regardless of whether you're a startup or SME or like a bigger, like a multinational company. We're happy to support you with all the resources which we have. So our mission is to help to promote and facilitate job creating business investment in the US. Um, so, and also we are actually geographically neutral in the sense that if a cosmetics company come to us asking us, which part of the US they should set up their business in. Usually we ask them for some guidance in terms of, where the customers are currently are, whether they're looking to collaborate with any local partners, are they looking to be close to the seaports, airports, especially if they're looking to import their products into the US. Then from those information, we will narrow down in terms of, which top 3 or top 5 states they should look at in terms of expanding their business into. And secondly, we have two types of clients. The first type is companies like yourselves who are engaging us in terms of our services into going to the US markets. And secondly, we work closely with economic development organizations at the state, regional, and local levels as well. So the EDOs are our local partners. So once a company says that they want to go to state A, we will connect the company to that particular state, and that state will talk about what kind of incentives, resources, and other programs the companies can tap on in that specific state in the US. So why the US market? So we have various reasons, as you can see here. So firstly, the US is a $30 trillion of GDP market. This also includes like 1/3 of global consumption as well. So, so the US has 50 different states, multiple cities and territories as well. So there's a lot of opportunities if you're looking to expand your business across the US. And secondly, is the US also geographically well positioned in order to support businesses? So let's say if you're let's say a Singaporean company setting up an entity in the US, once you are in the US, you'll be able to easily do business with neighboring countries in Latin America, even Europe market as well. And thirdly, we do have a skilled workforce in the US. So we do have some of the world-class universities in the US, and it'll be easily able to find the right talent pool in order to hire folks in your companies as well. And fourthly, we have a very business-friendly environment. In the sense that if you're an ASEAN company going to the US market, we will treat you equally as a US company already operating in the US market. So it creates like a level playing field for your company as well. And number five, we have a strong financial institutions. For example, we do have companies looking to list or raise capital in the US. So the US market actually provides those the capital liquidity. Um, so we're happy to support you if you're looking to um, raise capital and grow your business in the US as well. And number six, we also world leader in critical industries. Of course, when it comes to critical industry, we talk about like semiconductors, like quantum, AI, etc., etc. But of course, cosmetics is also an industry we are also looking to focus on as well. And number seven, robust IP production. So let's say you have a patent which you have registered in ASEAN region. If you want to register the same patent in the US, we're happy to also support you in that front. So moving on. So how SelectUSA can help is due to these three categories. Firstly, we provide data, which is actionable. So, so within data category, we do have the SelectUSA Investor Guide. It's like a 15-chapter guide. It talks about everything, including like immigration, taxation, business structuring, how to procure, in the US market. So it's a free guide. I think one of the slides later on will share more about that guide. So I will touch on that later on. And secondly, is the fact sheets. So we do have fact sheets on the country level, industry level as well, which gives like a high level information on the specific industry and what opportunities are. And thirdly, we do have a customized research reports. So we do have a in-house research team, which provides like very tailored research reports pertaining to your business needs. So happy to share more with you as well. And the second category is events. So we do organize events across the entire year. So we do events such as like single location promotions where we do have a specific state coming to Singapore or ASEAN region. We do, invite them to come to the embassy, or maybe can be external venue where we have to promote that particular states and the industries which they're covering. Um, and of course, talking about industries, we do have like sector focus industry focused webinars and also in-person events. And today is the cosmetic webinar. Last week we actually did a F&B webinar with Registrar Corp as well. And we do have a regional roadshow coming up very soon in February 2026, comprising 4 countries, including Singapore, Malaysia, Thailand, and the Philippines. So this is part of our global initiative where we do roadshows in Asia, PAC region, in Latin America, in other parts of the world, where we bring together the local business communities to learn more about the business and investment opportunities in the US market. And of course, we do have the 2026 like USA Invest Summit coming up in May this year, where you can also join us, and then you can also have the opportunity to announce any business investments in the US. And we do also have cultural events, which are actually organized by different states in order to get connected and plugged into the to different local partners within the states as well. And lastly, we do have navigation category. So in terms of navigation, we are also acting as ombudsman as a US government. We do have connections across different federal agencies, including FDA, of course, which is very relevant to today's webinar. So I think it's important to know the latest regulations in order to expand to the US so that you can make sure that your expansion journey is shortened and it's also seamless as well. And we do have a directory of service providers, let's say like law firms, tax accountants, and immigration lawyers who could actually help you with the nitty-gritty details in terms of setting up your US entity, your US presence, and also eventually hiring in the US. So these are some of the actionable information. These are all free tools online. So firstly, the fact sheets which I touched on earlier, and secondly is investor guides. Thirdly is the custom mapping tool, and the fourthly is customized research report as well. So this investor guides, so this link at the bottom, feel free to check it out. So it's a free guide where we actually work together with our partners across different areas. So we've put together like 15 chapters. Everything you need to know in order to expand to your business in the US is everything is here. So yeah, please take a look. So the cost mapping tool is also a free tool which we have at our disposal. So for example, let's look at the hospitality sector, right? If you are in this hospitality sector, if you want to go to the US market, which states you should be focusing on, right? Because the US is 50 different states, you want to focus on that particular 3 or 5 states. So as you can see on the map on the left-hand side, the blue regions or states are those states which are heavily concentrated in hospitality sector. So those are the states like California, Texas, Florida, so these are states you should be focusing on in hospitality sector because those are the states which are heavily concentrated with industry peers, with like, partners in supply chain, the etc. etc. So feel free to check out the link below on the class mapping tool as well. So this is the state business incentives tool, which is also free tool which you can use as well. So we do have companies coming to us asking, which state provides them the best resources, the best incentives, right? So usually we will direct them to these two. They can easily like click on any of the states within this map, and they will be given like a list of programs each state actually provides. So it's a very useful tool as well. So coming to the SelectUSA Invest Summit coming up in May, 3rd to May 6th in Maryland, near DC. So this summit is actually the highest profile event which we have every single year. In the past, we had President Obama attended, and we do have our secretaries of commerce. We do have governors, White House officials, C-suite executives from all over the world coming to the US because they want to learn more the latest business opportunities across the different states, right? And this is the only event like within 3 to 4 days we can connect with all the states because all the states will be having their booth at that exhibition hall within the event. So you can literally walk from like New York to California, California to Texas, Texas to Ohio, uh, to connect with the different state representative to learn more about those opportunities, the local ecosystem partners, and from there you can come back to your home country, do evaluation to stuff, which state will meet your business needs or your investment goals as well. Yeah, so this is the website at the bottom. Feel free to check out the website to get more information on the summit. So this delegation which we had from Singapore last year, I don't have the ASEAN delegation photo right now. So we do have around like 300 companies that attended last year's summits. So do reach out to us if you are keen to join us for the delegation next year, this year. So SelectUSA Tech is another program which we also focus on because we also realized that tech startups are also very much keen to expand to the US. We do have very much tailored programming for them. So how do you actually define tech startups are through whether they are less than 10 years old, whether they are earning up to 10 million of revenue, whether they are less than 40 employees, and how we help them is through like client counseling. We provide them the data which they need to expand to the US. We provide them the connections to different EDOs in the US. Federal agencies. We also conduct workshops, academic sessions, which can touch on things like just how to expand their business in the US by connecting with different partners, how to scale their businesses, how to fundraise in the US, etc. And we do have pitching sessions across like 5 different sectors, namely defense, energy, healthcare, ICT software, and open category as well. But if you're a company in the cosmetic sector, you're using some kind of technology in your products, if you want to join us, you're welcome to join us for the open category, which is the miscellaneous category. Um, and we do have in-person networking events at the summit as well. So we also have tailored programming for Select Global Women Tech as well, because we also understand that female founders might be under-resourced, under-supported. So we do have this like 12-month long mentorship program for female founders. It's mainly virtual. So we do connect them to like female mentors in the US, right? There could be corporate executives, venture capitalists, angel investors, attorneys who have worked with like multiple female founders, female executives to help them expand to the US. So they can share with you some of the resources, some of the learning points in order to expand your business in the US as well. So for the summits, we do have spin-off events before and after the summit dates. So the spin-off events are actually taking place across different states, different sectors as well. So there's this link at the bottom. Feel free to check it out if any of these states and sectors might be relevant for you. And we do also try to highlight any of our success stories of companies we have helped in ASEAN region. So these are some of the examples which have published in the recent newspapers as well. So do reach out to us if you have a story to share, and happy to work with you to amplify your successes in expanding your business in the US market. So yeah, I think we've now come to the Q&A session. So this is the content details of Aisha and also myself. If not, pass over to Devon. Over to you.
Thanks, Masson, again for another detailed presentation. Very useful information for exporters and investors on the range of tools available to companies looking to set up or expand in the U.S. So I know we promised Q&A. I also know we're running a little over time. We wanted to really squeeze in as much information for y'all as possible to thank you for joining us today. So if you need to sign off, we completely understand. As I mentioned before, we would love your support in filling out a survey if you do need to go. So I just dropped that link in the chat right now if you can take time, if you do need to log off. We'll hit just a couple questions. And then, of course, Aisha and Mastan have their email addresses on the screen. So if there's anything we can't answer for you today or if something comes up later, please note down their contact information and feel free to reach out to them anytime. But we'll try to sneak in a few and we'll wrap it up here. So Aisha, one for you. If my contract manufacturer is not registered and not a small business, can I still complete listing?
If it's a small business and it's not registered, or if it's not a small business?
Sorry, I'm trying to base it off of how the question is written, but I think maybe you can just give a little, speak to both.
If you're able to submit product listing if there are a small business, okay, except for what is not in the exception, meaning no eye products and all the exceptions that the FDA established, you're able to submit the product listing. If they are not a small business, you are required to have an FEI, and that FEI has to be linked to your registration with the FDA, and you have to be registered as a cosmetic facility to register product listings.
Thank you for that. And then, I think this one would be best suited for you. What are some pain points that companies often face when starting their business in the US for the first time?
Well, thanks so much, Devon, for the very helpful question. So I think there's various pain points, right? The one thing is, for proximity. So we do have like ASEAN companies telling us, the US is so much far away and it's difficult to do business there. But the thing is, by working with partners such as Registrar Corp has actually, will actually smoothen your process and make things easier for you. Because as Aisha actually shared more about the latest FDA regulations under like MoCRA, product registration, listing, safety and quality control, etc., etc. So they're experts to share more about how you get your products into the US. Of course, things like the operational aspects, right? Like logistics and distribution, supply chain, how do you ship your products, into the different states, working with local partners, custom brokers. These are things which you also need to know. You can reach out to Aisha or myself if you need those contact details as well. And eventually, if you have that, enough traction into the US market, you want to set up an US legal entity, sales and rep office, even to manufacture your products in the US, to take advantage of the last consumer markets, feel free to reach out to us as well. We do have those resources to help you in terms of getting your products in the US, hiring the right talents, and also if you want to manufacture in the US, we can provide you of all the contact details and the resources at disposal.
Thank you, Moss. And then I'm going to just end with this one last question that came through the chat. So any other questions, please do, as I mentioned before, send those by email to either Aisha or Muhammad or Mastan or both by the email shown on the screen. But we'll close out with this one. So Aisha, the question says, you mentioned that products need to be renewed, including discontinued products. May we know why we need to still register the discontinued products?
Any adverse event. Let's say you have a discontinued product that your consumers may still have in the market, meaning at home using, They could not be they obviously are discontinued, no longer in the market, but your consumer could still have those products and still would have to have the adverse event. If those products were registered before 2022, please know that none of that data is already available for the FDA. All of that was removed. Anything after 2022, you could discontinue the product, but it still would need to have for the adverse event, because there could be an adverse event after your product is discontinued for that. So it has to be in your product submission as a discontinued product.
Thank you so much. And again, I'm so sorry. I see questions still coming in through the Q&A and in the chat, but we are already over time and I don't want to hold everyone too long. So please take note of the email addresses shown on the screen right now, and we are happy to continue to answer questions by email after this event. And then also, I just want to make one more request to please, before you sign off today, click the link I am dropping into the chat right now to complete a survey about your experience today and the information you've learned. And on behalf of the U.S. Foreign Commercial Service and Registrar Corp, we really thank you for taking the time to attend and engage with us today. And we hope to hear from you soon and support your success. Thank you, everyone.
Bye.